Oh, wow. So somebody sent me this, and I guess I'm going to do a video on it just for the hell of it. Entrepreneur Magazine, back on November 8th, 2020, put out a online article entitled 10 Reasons to Invest in Pokemon Cards. And the subtitle gets even worse. It says, why adding collectibles to your portfolio makes sense in the year 2020 and 2021. Now, for those unaware, you are understanding what we were going through as a society back on November 8th, 2020. To shed some light onto this, for those of you that remember it quite well, maybe some of you are traumatized from the experience, we were stuck indoors due to the pandemic at that particular point in time. And a lot of the governments, the world governments, their solution to the problem was, and again, I don't disagree with this, their solution was to give all the citizens that qualified money so that they can at least buy basic necessities and have a little bit of fun while they were stuck indoors. Now, unfortunately, very few people ended up investing that money in a well-diversified portfolio, in an S&P 500 index fund, in a total stock market index fund. Instead, they went to the market and they attempted to speculate on video games, comic books, Pokemon cards, MetaZoo, and the like. And you guys can see how that ended up for the most part. Now, I am going to read this particular article. I want to warn you, it is extremely hype-driven. I disagree with almost all of it. I consider this particular article to be nothing more than a piece of hype-driven trash. That's why I'm not mentioning the author, because I do apologize to the author, because I know that probably wasn't his intent. But honestly, if you would have told me that this was an article that was written by the Pokemon company themselves, I would honestly believe you the way that this reads. So this is one of the reasons, guys, why I tell you to be very careful when non-collecting publications or the overall news media reports on the antiques and collectibles trade. It usually ends up with a piece of journalism that is like this, and it can't be trusted. So we're going to go through. I am going to post a link to this particular article in the video description below. I am going to read through it, and I'm going to give you my immediate thoughts on some of these reasons that you should be investing in rare Pokemon cards in the year 2020, no less. So we're going to go through this, and I'm going to tell you why exactly this article is everything that's wrong with the overall perception of the antiques and collectibles trade from the mainstream media and non-collectors alike. So here we go. Pokemon cards were introduced in 1996 as part of the franchise's trading card game. Less than 25 years later, some of these first edition Pokemon have appreciated in price of over 10,000%. Alongside the limited supply and extremely high demand, there are plenty of reasons why Pokemon cards make for excellent investments. So they're already setting it up by telling you, hey, this particular franchise came out roughly 25 years ago, and we already have cards that have appreciated in price over 10,000%. So you already see where this is going. Number one, the best cards are worth more than you would think. Okay, what problem could I have with this statement? Well, let's read what they wrote, and I'll give you my thoughts. In 2018, a man named Gary made digital headlines after appearing on Pawn Stars with a series of Pokemon cards, which he claimed were worth $500,000. While this claim initially astounded both the audience and the show's experts, it's perfectly true that rare first edition cards can hold immense value. The cards brought into Pawn Stars by Gary were just a small fraction of his assets, too. Gary's entire collection was later revealed to be worth approximately $5 million. Earlier this month, the YouTuber Logan Paul bought a first edition PSA graded 10 Charizard card from Pawn Stars Gary for a whopping $150,000. And that's not even close to the highest price ever fetched by a Pokemon card. This honor went to the Pikachu Illustrator card, which sold for $233,000. Though the average price of Pokemon cards is much lower, let me read that line again. Though the average price of Pokemon cards is much lower, there are many rare, highly collectible cards with values upwards of $200,000. A 1999 holographic, shadowless first edition Charizard, for instance, is currently worth between $150,000 to $200,000. Even more common cards can be worth several $1,000s depending on their condition. For example, Charizard Holo cards from the 1999 base set have been known to fetch over $5,000 to $10,000 each, despite the fact that there are over 10,000 of them in circulation. So this is the problem. Whenever the mainstream media comments on the antiques and collectibles trade, they always focus on the top 1% to 5% of the market. Now, to be fair, that is the investor's playground. But let's be realistic here. There aren't too many people sitting with millions of dollars at their disposal that are going to read this article and go, you know what? I have millions of dollars to spend. I just read this article in Entrepreneur Magazine about investing in Pokemon cards. Let's get to it. And starts going after these top tier cards. That doesn't happen. This is going to attract the average speculator, the commoner out there who may not even be a collector, who reads this and goes, wow, I can find Pokemon cards worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not understanding that the chances of him finding those particular cards at a flea market, at a garage sale, at an antique mart are slim to none. So he's going to get sucked into this market, and pretty much, if anything, he's going to speculate. He's going to potentially either make some money on that speculation, or he's going to lose money, but eventually he's going to lose interest because he's not a collector at heart. Remember, guys, a collector is born. They are not made. Most investors in the antiques and collectibles trade, I told you guys this before because this echoes me perfectly. Most investors in the antiques and collectibles trade either are still or were at some point collectors that have the collecting gene in them. They just now crossed over and became investors. And that's what you need to understand. All of these articles, whether we're talking about comic books, video games, rare coins, high-end pieces of art, traditional antiques, whatever it is, it's always amazing how they always start all talking about the top 1% to 5% of the market. And then they may in passing mention, well, the bottom 95%, it really isn't as strong as the top 1% to 5%, but there's some pieces of value down there if little Timmy, Kimmy, or Poindexter Jr. wants to play his luck and try to invest in these particular cards, hoping that over time he's going to build wealth in this particular market. That's one of the main problems that I have with this particular piece thus far. But wait, it gets worse. Number 2, true collectibles are guaranteed to increase in value. Now, right there, that is a downright lie. I don't care if we're talking about rare coins, high-end artwork, Pokemon cards, comic books, video games, traditional antiques. If anybody ever comes to you in the antiques and collectibles trade and says, this is guaranteed to increase in value, please run the other way. There are no guarantees in the antiques and collectibles trade. Guarantees in antiques and collectibles ended in the 1980s and 90s, according to collectibles expert Harry Rinker. I bring him up a lot on this channel. Feel free to check out his website at www.harryrinker.com. No, I am not plugging him. Keep in mind, Harry Rinker is in his 80s and he is retired. The website still exists, though. But if you want to learn how these markets work, Harry Rinker has pretty much every column, every column that he ever wrote on the antiques trade, literally listed in archives on his website that you could just go in and read for free. Now, some of his articles are very long. Trust me, I'm a fellow author. I write for Antiques and Auction News. But if you read them, you will gain an understanding as to how these markets work. And Harry Rinker always said, guaranteed returns in the antiques and collectibles trade ended in the 1980s and the 1990s. Here we are in 2023. These markets are extremely speculative and highly volatile. So let's read what they wrote. Pokemon cards are collectibles, and many sets went out of print years ago. The inherently limited supply of each card type means that as time goes on and cards become more difficult to obtain, the value will steadily increase. There's no guarantee of that, guys. That is the speculator pipe dream, isn't it? Where they only made so many. I bought mine. I kept them factory sealed. They're always going to go up in value. I can count on that as an investment. The antiques and collectibles trade was never designed to work that way. If we go all the way back to the origins of the trade, it was never supposed to work that way. What used to happen is a product would be released into the market, whether it was vintage Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, whatever it was. The product would run its course. It would end up in the bargain bin. Nobody would want it. For years, that product would be seen as worthless. Then literally 10, 20, 30 years would go by. People would get nostalgic for that particular item. People would develop a reinterest in it. They would go to the market and they would try to buy it back, and the price would increase as a result due to that newfound demand. In the antiques and collectibles trade, in the modern era, what's happening? Companies like Lego, companies like Nintendo, companies like Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, they discontinue a product and the Timmies just swoop in and they buy it. They keep it factory sealed and they go, it's an investment. That is not sustainable. That's the problem that I have with Funko Pops. Everybody's buying this stuff. They're keeping it factory sealed. It's an investment. There's no guarantee it's going to go up in value. That is literally speculation in a nutshell. Back to the article. Because of this, the investment model with Pokemon cards is exceedingly simple. After purchasing a rare card, the longer you hold on to it, the more profit you'll make when you decide to sell. That's ridiculous. There's virtually no chance of a card that's out of print decreasing in value over time. You guys should see through this. That's 100% false. You know it's false, even if you collect Pokemon cards, for crying out loud. Number 3, there's a global market for Pokemon cards. Now, here's the problem that I have with this. There's a global market for US rare coins. There's a global market for Oriental rugs. There's a global market for comic books. There's a global market for Lego. There's a global market for vintage toys. Do you see what I did there? Anything has a global market that is collected in the year 2023 in most cases. There are exceptions to every rule. There's something called regional collecting. We haven't talked about it that much on this particular channel. A video is coming soon, though, on regional collecting. Make no mistake. With that being said, let's read what they wrote. Because the global appeal and popularity of the franchise, trade in Pokemon cards is alive and well in just about every corner of the world, including in-person, conferences, and auction houses. That's true, but again, that applies to almost every single popular antique and collectible that has a viable secondary market in the year 2023. This means that if you invest in collectible Pokemon cards and decide it's time to sell, it won't be difficult to find a buyer. Yeah, but what price are they willing to pay? Every collectible does not have a price. You need to understand that. There are certain items that will not sell, regardless of their price. Going back to the article, despite appearances, Pokemon card trade is far from a niche interest. The market is liquid. And again, that liquidity is based on speculation and demand. At any time, demand and speculation can fall, and that liquidity could go away. You need to realize that. That is an inherent risk. Next, number 4. And number 4, literally, I don't know why they even put this in this particular piece because there's only like 2 sentences attached to it. It says it's easy to find out the price of a specific card. There are plenty of resources online for checking the specifications of every Pokemon card ever printed, including the approximate value of each. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Just know we could say that for any collectible in the year 2023. There's resources you can go and you can look up the value of vintage Star Wars toys. You can look up the value of comic books, as we know. You can look up the value of Pez. You can look up the value of Beanie Babies, Funko Pops, rare coins, Oriental rugs, rare pieces of art. What does it matter? All these particular markets in the year 2023, I guarantee you, if there is a stable secondary collecting community accumulating this stuff, there are also online price guides in most cases. I mean, I can bring up Fenton Glass. I can bring up Tiffany Glass. Are you guys aware there's price guides devoted to those collectibles as well? It doesn't matter. In the year 2023, everything is online. You can look up the value of anything. Everybody walks around with a smartphone, right? You have a powerful computer that has all this price information readily available to you 24/7 at your fingertips. Next, number 5. There are plenty of collectors out there willing to pay for rare cards. Okay, just the headline alone I want to comment on. I agree with the headline simply because at present time, that is true. That doesn't mean it's going to be true 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years into the future. That's the problem that I have with this. So let's read what they wrote. The market for Pokemon cards is not only wide-reaching, but also home to thousands of dedicated collectors intent on completing their sets and obtaining every single card out there. Gotta catch them all, right? Because of this, you won't need to put any effort into making the sale when you decide it's time to get a return on your investment. For rare, genuinely valuable cards, All is what it takes is an online listing. The offers pour in by themselves at present time. There's no guarantee that is going to extend into the future. You need to realize that. That is a tremendous risk. Enough on that. Number 6, you can get to know the market quickly. Okay, this I actually agree with. The barrier to entry on pop culture collectibles compared to antiques is relatively low. Anybody can go to the store right now. They can go to Walmart, they can go to Target, they can go to GameStop, wherever Pokemon cards are sold. They could buy a pack and they could literally get acclimated to the market just by buying that $4 or $5 pack of cards, taking it home and looking them up online. So I'm not going to lie. You are correct. You can get to know the market very quickly for pop culture collectibles, more so than traditional antiques, high-end art, rare coins, edged weapons, firearms, historical documents, collectible first edition books. That does not mean it is a better investment for pop culture collectibles than that of antiques. It just means the barrier to entry is lower. So let's read what they wrote. Investing in Pokemon cards doesn't involve a lot of in-depth research or specialist knowledge. Unlike the stock market, real estate, oh my God, or bond investments, Pokemon card trading is straightforward and relatively simple. All of the information you need to start investing in Pokemon cards is freely available online. So it only takes a small amount of research to understand what to look out for. Well, yes, the barrier to entry for pop culture investing is a lot lower than that of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, real estate, or hardcore antiques. That is 100% true. That's what I've been talking about on this channel for literally years now. And if we go back further, for more than a decade through the articles that I write through Antiques and Auction News. Pop culture collectibles are very easy to get into. Number 7, there's an increasing demand for unopened, limited edition box sets. Now, this is where, this is quite interesting. Let's read what they wrote before I respond. It's not just individual rare cards that are likely to fetch a good return. Box sets are also increasingly difficult to find, which means their value is steadily going up. Buying cards in bulk and unboxing them during a live stream has become a popular format for several YouTubers. Earlier this month, YouTuber Logan Paul bought a first edition Pokemon card box set for $200,000 to open during a charity stream. The box set didn't disappoint. Paul found a first edition Charizard card inside the set, which was worth approximately $40,000 at the time. If you're not interested in building a collection and going after specific valuable cards, investing in box sets is a simple way to make a profit on Pokemon cards without the need to understand the market on a deeper level. Disagree with that. Knowledge is still key. Provided the box set is valuable and genuine, you can hold on to it for a while and sell it for a profit without ever opening it. Again, guys, vintage product, not the mass-produce and hoard it modern era product. Do you get the difference? Vintage product, I do agree with that. Modern era product, everybody's hoarding it. Everybody has it. The depth of the market is too high. Vintage stuff is truly rare, hard to find, hard to get a hold of. That said, if you're going to go after the vintage factory seal booster boxes, you got to understand the risks. You could get a tampered with box, a fraudulent box, and you're also going to pay a tremendous fortune for that particular item rather than going after the present era Scarlet, Violet, whatever Pokemon product is out at present time. You have to understand the dichotomy of the market. 8, detailed information on each card is easily available. Okay, this is ridiculous. You can say the same thing on action figures, comic books, anything you want to collect. Information is out there. It doesn't matter. There are several sites offering convenient search engines for Pokemon trading cards. Those interested only in investing rather than playing will find a wealth of information there, including how many copies of each card are in circulation, which set it belongs to, when it was printed, and much more. This makes it easy to estimate the value of a Pokemon card investment opportunity, as well as being a useful resource for organizing your collection. Okay, in all honesty, I don't understand why that even comes into play when we're talking about reasons to invest in Pokemon cards. That's any pop culture collectible. Just Google price charting. Google go collect, and you're going to come up with a plethora of information about certain pop culture collectibles. There's a ton of information readily available, and a lot of this information is free in certain instances. Number 9, and this is another dumb one. Pokemon cards are easy to store. So are rare coins. So are comic books to a lesser extent. So are sports trading cards. So are stamps. What is the point? I don't understand this. So I got to read what they wrote. Valuable Pokemon cards do need to be stored properly to prevent fraying and accidental damage. But it takes minimum effort and cost to keep your collection safe. You can say that about currency, say that about rare coins, if we really want to go down that path. Purpose-designed storage solutions for Pokemon cards are easily available in the form of individual pockets or binders. It's therefore exceedingly simple to keep your cards safe and organized. Again, you can say that about any mainstream collecting hobby, whether it's on the antique side of the equation or collectibles, coins, comic books, sports cards, hell, even postcards. People that collect postcards, you can go to a supply store and you can get like a box specifically made to hold vintage postcards. That doesn't mean that investing in postcards is recommended in the year 2023. Trust me, I'm a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. If you come to me and you tell me you're investing in postcards in 2023, there's very few that are worthwhile investing in this day and age. Number 10, you don't need to know the franchise. Serious investors are sometimes put off by the seemingly childish nature of Pokemon cards and the idea that they would need to delve into the franchise in order to make informed decisions and allocate their assets well. Love the way that's worded. Allocate their assets well. In fact, neither of these assumptions hold true. Although the franchise was aimed primarily at teenagers, there are plenty of adult enthusiasts and a community of serious collectors, as well as professional Pokemon players taking part in worldwide tournaments. In any case, investing in valuable Pokemon cards is no different than collecting stamps. Kind of ironic that they chose stamps because the stamp market, 95% of that market anyway, has been in a decline for many, many years now. It's only the top 1 to 5% of the stamp market that is actually doing gangbusters at present time. And it's more popular in certain countries than others. For instance, in the US, only the top 5% of that market matters. You go over to Great Britain is still nuts for stamp collecting in certain circles. So it just depends on what region you live. In the US, stamp collecting is dying a slow death for most of the market. If anything, the former makes sense because Pokemon cards were intended to be collected and traded. Knowledge of the franchise certainly helps if you want your Pokemon card investments to turn into a hobby. However, it's by no means necessary, especially because there are plenty of resources online to identify and assess every card. Okay, guys, do you guys see why this particular article is 100% stupid? I am going to post a link to it in the video description below. Feel free to give me your thoughts. Again, anytime the mainstream media ventures into the antiques and collectibles trade and puts out hype-driven content, please be afraid. Be very, very afraid. If you would have bought a lot of these items that Entrepreneur, Money Magazine, CNBC, Wall Street, Barron's did an article on during the pandemic, a lot of these antiques and collectibles, you'd be sitting at major losses right now because I told you back then even that market is going to pull back. And let's just use comic books as an example. Comic books pulled back 10 to 40%. There's a lot of people hurting right now that lost tens of thousands, in certain instances, hundreds of thousands of dollars if they go and sell into the market at present time. Don't let that be you. Don't get caught up in the hype. For the record, I want to be very clear here. You can make money in the antiques and collectibles trade. I'm living proof of that. I want to assure you, you can make money collecting, investing in Pokemon cards if you go about it the right way and you understand that eventually this hype-driven mania that we're in right now will eventually end. If you understand that and you're level-headed, you can make money in these markets. But overall, there is a right way to invest in these markets and a wrong way. What I teach on this channel is the right way to invest in these particular markets over the short term and over the long term. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. Let me know your thoughts on this particular video.